Hi folks, my name is Joe Mazza. I'm currently a member of the Board of Selectman, and I'm the Republican candidate for First Selectman. I'm joined this afternoon with Cindy Cartier, who is my colleague on the Board of Selectmen, and Charles Haverder, who is our candidate for a Selectman spot. Cindy and Charles, I wonder if you can tell the folks in Guilford something about yourselves.
Sure. As Joe said, hi folks, I'm seeking re-election to the Board of Selectmen. I've been serving for 2 years now. Prior to that, I spent a few years on the Board of Education, and then prior to that, a number of years on the Planning and Zoning Commission, including serving as chairman. My reasons for running 2 years ago with Joe are the same reasons we have now for running, and that is mainly to see the town in a better and a more stronger fiscal position. We've lacked fiscal discipline, particularly in the last 2 years, if not for the last 6 years with the current administration, the current leadership. We've got a tremendous amount of work to do, so and that's become quite evident in the last 2 years. So part of my desire to do that is to create a better, more sound Guilford for the future, the present and the future, and for not only myself and my family, but for everyone's family in town. So, how about you, Charlie?
Good afternoon. My name's Charles Howard. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen here in town. I've lived and worked in Guilford for over 30 years. My wife teaches second grade up at Melissa Jones. My two boys have been totally educated in the Guilford school systems, and I really appreciate the value of a good education. Like we were going to get into later on, the positions of financial situation in the town are very important. The open space issues and the use of open space are very important, and I'm going to turn it over to Joe now to let him tell us a little bit about himself.
Thank you, Charles. Like I said at the opening, I am a member of the Board of Selectmen and will be completing my third term, which will be 6 years. Prior to that, I was a 10-year member of the Board of Finance. My wife and I, Jean, have lived in Guilford for 22 years, and we really love this town, and I love serving the town as an elected official. Charles, you brought up the fact, and so did you, Cindy, that one of the main reasons we're all running for our respective offices is because of the financial situation that Guilford finds itself in today. We feel that we can bring a new direction to the leadership of this town. And I'd like you to kind of expand on that, what type of leadership we're going to bring. One thing I will say to start off is that what I envision doing is on day one is to organize a efficiency task force. And what do I mean by that? I mentioned that in my acceptance speech back in July, is I have already talked to a number of individuals, professionals in town, who will volunteer to serve on this task force to do a top-to-bottom review of all our town departments. Now, this has been done in the past for the fire department, and it's also been done for the police department, but it was never really been done for the rest of the town departments. And I think it's time we do that, because we both, and you've been saying that for a long time, that there are a lot of inefficiencies in running town government and providing these services. As excellent as they are, there are inefficiencies, and this task force that I want to put together is going to recognize and point out the inefficiencies and come up with procedures to overcome those inefficiencies and become a more efficient town, and thereby becoming a town that runs at a lower cost than it is now. So, Cindy, why don't you tell us something about that?
Well, I think I've lived in town a little bit over 11 years and spent summers and weekends here, years and years prior to that, because my aunt lived out here. But I think as soon as I got involved a number of years ago, realizing that we have a tremendous amount of plans in town, separate plans, economic development, land use, etc. But what we lack is a cohesive, comprehensive plan that brings them all together and puts a fiscal component onto everything and prioritizes what we'd like to do, not only just in some of the plans like with regard to land use or economic development, but also with regard to our infrastructure. So I think what's lacking is the communication between a number of different departments, both on the town side and then communicating overall with the Board of Ed side. And I think with our group together here and the ticket and what we offer and what Joe offers at the helm of this as a leadership is with his experience and knowledge and drive to do just that, to actually put this task force together, to lay things out, and then to put a cohesive plan together that will get us in a better position financially. But it's not just always about money either. I mean, the other things, people talk about the things they want to do, and we want to see those things happen, the services, the wonderful fun things that are offered in town. But in order to get there, there is a fiscal component, and we want to make sure that the money that we're charging the citizens in terms of taxes is being used the most efficiently and to the desire of most of the folks in town. And along with that, to get the most bang out of the buck, I guess is the best way to put it. And now it's become really the forefront because of the economy, but it should have been always our focus. Whether times are good or bad, we should always be looking at that, because the economy is always cyclical. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. And we should have been anticipating this, and I think that's my biggest frustration, is that there's been the lack of doing that. So I think the work that Joe and I have done in the last 2 years, and the work that Charlie's done in many different areas, including his service on Board Planning and Zoning Commission, the like, putting all of this together, we've got the experience, the knowledge, the drive, the passion, and the real understanding of Guilford and how it works in order to actually get this done. It's not talking about it, it's actually doing it. So.
Most of my civic experiences on different boards and commissions were with land use commissions, inland wetlands, planning and zoning, economic development. But my private board memberships have included trustee of the Guilford Savings Bank and on a finance committee and a Guilford representative in the Regional Water Authority Board. In these boards, you come to realize that budgets are very, very important. It's both a revenue and an expense issue. I'm especially proud and confident as Joe is a leader of this ticket and his financial background to step up, and such as this one program he's talked about the efficiencies, and also I think he can talk about now setting up a fund so that each year when we have capital expenditures that we have to address, they don't have to affect each annual budget. We can have a fund put aside, just as we've put aside for open space, so that we can plan and draw from that fund rather than each annual budget. Joe, you want to explain that?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Yes, I do. And before I explain that, I just want to make mention is that our opponents, too, have been saying about how we have to reform our budget and how we have to take another look at expenses and look ways to raise revenue. And we all have that common theme, that what separates us from our opponents in this race is that we have the plans. We know what we want to do. We're not going to say, well, we should do this, should do that. We have plans in place on how we're going to tackle this. Number one, like I mentioned, is going to be the task force. The other item we're going to do is really put a long-range plan together. We heard, Cindy, remember, in the last election that we have these plans. Well, if we had these plans, they weren't working.
No, we didn't have the plans.
And you're right, we don't have the plans. So we're going to put these long-range plans together. And the way that we attempt to finance our capital expenditures, let's face it, you're always going to have to buy capital equipment. Assets, they get worn. They have to be replaced. Trucks have to be replaced. Bulldozers or payloaders for public works have to be replaced. We need this equipment. We can't always, patch them up and put them back on the road. And the way we envision doing this is by putting together, after we have the long-range plan, a one-time bond issue. And the bond issue will be to cover what's in the plan over a series of years, similar to the land acquisition fund that I guess was 10 years ago we put that together, where we're still drawing down on it. And the departments and the at the direction of the Board of Selectmen will draw down on this bonding issue to pay for this equipment. And so by doing that, we keep the equipment purchases out of the operating budget, and therefore inflating the operating budget each year. Now, it's true, we're financing it, so we're going to pay some interest and we're going to pay part of the principal, but we're spreading it out. And we don't envision putting a bonding issue together to buy one truck. We're looking at the fleet over several years.